So welcome everyone, and I'd like to begin this day of meditation by paying respects to the traditional owners of this land that I'm on right now, which is Windjawibal country in the Bundjalung Nation, which is in Northern Rivers, New South Wales, Lismore, which is had a disaster in the last month. So today, what we'll do as every day of meditation is based on finding freedom from suffering, basically. Finding freedom from dukkha. And many of you have heard me talk about dukkha in the past, at other times. Dukkha generally refers to suffering, but it's probably best understood as unsatisfactoriness. So there's a wide range of experiences between that suffering and unsatisfactoriness, and I think you all know these types of experiences that I'm talking about. So the way I understand to be free from suffering, or to be free from dukkha, is to practice the Eightfold Path, practice ethics, the cultivation of the mind, or meditation, or familiarization with our minds, our heart minds, and the cultivation of wisdom, which includes compassion. Wisdom on the Eightfold Path is like this: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. The wisdom component of the path is right view, which is seeing things as they actually are. Seeing things in the reality of what they actually are, rather than seeing things as we, according to our projections and our delusions. Right view is seeing things that are impermanent as impermanent, seeing things as unable to satisfy as unable to satisfy, unable to bring enduring happiness, and also seeing things as interdependent. And I'll talk more about this later. Interdependent means not self in Buddhist language. Not self means there's no individual thing that can be found, no separate thing that can be found in any conditioned experience. All things arise and pass away depending on causes and conditions. There's no single entity within all this. So right view includes this understanding that everything is impermanent, everything is all conditioned phenomena is unable to bring enduring happiness because it's conditioned, and that all things are interdependent. All things arise and pass away according to conditions. And that includes us. There's no single entity that can be found. We have lots of self-concepts, and we use those self-concepts, but there's no lasting thing here called the self. There is something called the self. It's a continuum of experiences, but it's not a solid, lasting entity. So that includes wisdom, and the other thing that is included in wisdom is what's called right intentions, or wise intentions, or skillful intentions. Skillful intentions there's three basic categories of skillful intentions. Skillful intentions include intentions of renunciation. Another way I'd describe that would be intentions of letting go of clinging to experience, letting go of clinging when that clinging causes suffering. And there's a lot to be said about that, but basically it's the intentions of letting go. Intentions of dana, for example, intentions of generosity, and so on. Intentions of non-harm, harmlessness, meaning, in other words, I guess another way you could describe this would be intentions of compassion, compassionate intentions. And the third type of intentions that are wholesome and helpful, that help us on the path are intentions of goodwill. Goodwill here means benevolence and compassion, appreciation, not forcing people to do things that they may not want to do. All these intentions of kindness, goodwill, compassion, benevolence, and so on. So this is part of the Eightfold Path, but the Eightfold Path basically begins with ethics, and ethics involve actions of body, speech, and mind that are consistent with our best understanding and our good intentions. And when we act in that way, in non-harming ways, in ways of goodwill and in ways of compassion and so on, what happens is we have the foundation, the mental foundation, the spiritual foundations, the psychological foundations to cultivate our mind, to become familiar with our lives and the world, to practice meditation. And so meditation here involves these three other aspects of the Eightfold Path, being right effort or right energy, right mindfulness, and right concentration or samadhi. And I won't go into great details about what this is now, because you've heard me talk about these things multiple times, many times, some of you anyway. But it is this effort involves the kind of direction of our energies, our perseverance to stick at something, and it's not too effortful, it's not too extreme, it's not like there's a comparison between tuning a guitar-like instrument and effort. If it's too tight, if it's too effortful, the guitar string doesn't sound good. And if it's too slack, too lax, too not too tight, too loose, then it doesn't sound good either. But it's this effort is this balance between overexertion, too much enthusiasm, kind of too much trying, and not enough. It's this perfect balance. So with that perfect balance, we begin to be present with experience, we open up to experience, and then with that also we have concentration, which is this gathering together of our mental energies and putting them in one space, in one direction, in one space. And so meditation here is the combination and the it's like the ingredients of effort, mindfulness, and concentration coming together in kind of a perfect balance. And there's two aspects to meditation. Generally, there's insight and serenity, or tranquility, sometimes it's called, or stillness. And these two aspects of meditation work together to produce wisdom, to produce insight and wisdom. Insight is like right view, and wisdom includes the capacity to act in a way that is in line with our insights. So insight by itself could be quite dry, but if we have compassion, for example, with that, then it makes it alive. It makes it really part of that Eightfold Path. So insight and serenity is what I'm inviting you to practice today in our endeavor to find freedom from suffering, not only within ourselves but also within others, because what we find is that once we start to practice, once we start to open our hearts and find freedom in our hearts, we realize that we're not alone here. We're part of a bigger whole. We're part of a common humanity. And we want to do it for everyone. It's like a broader perspective. It's not just this narrow pathway that involves just me, I, mine, and myself. It involves all beings or others. It extends beyond that kind of self-centered approach. It becomes altruistic. So we do that when we do work on ourselves, when we do uproot the root causes of suffering, being greed, ignorance, and hatred. When we do that, what we discover is we also cease feeding into whatever causes suffering for ourselves as well as others. So when we work on ourselves, we might be in a room alone, kind of clearing our minds of these root causes of suffering, and we're wondering, how does this help with others? It actually does help with others because we become a better person. We act in ways that are skillful and compassionate, and ways that are altruistic, and ways that are liberating, not only for ourselves but for others. So that's the aim for today, and I haven't talked about what do they call those? Housekeeping duties. Normally when you're on a live retreat you say, housekeeping duties, if you want to escape, the fire escape's over there, and the flood escape's over there. Only joking. So and the the toilets, feel free to go to the toilets there, run around back. So we're online today, so you have to work out your own pace with that. But I will tell you that please feel free to go to the loo or go to the toilet whenever you want. And feel free to come and go as you need. And all you need to do is turn off the screen. Thank you for those who are turning on the screen. It's helpful for me to see faces. And it's probably helpful for others too to see faces, because it builds on that sense of sangha. It builds on that sense of community when we can see who's over there, maybe in Western Australia, or who's over there somewhere in Melbourne, or wherever you people are coming from. Maybe some of you are coming from overseas, I'm not sure. But it helps to see our sangha working together, because it gives us support. It connects us with that greater humanity, and we feel our backs are covered. Hold on, I'm just reading something. Okay, that's all right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I can read that some people can't turn on their camera, and that's fine. That's all right. I'm not going to harass you. I'm not the camera police here. I'm not going to harass you. Hi. But the two things we're practicing, just to respond to a text message, are serenity and insight. So I will invite you to a meditation, and this is the agenda for the day. We usually begin with a guided meditation, or we begin with an orientation and a bit of a talk about what we're doing, which is what we're doing right now. Then we have a guided meditation, and then we have one or two silent meditations. Then we have a break, a morning tea break. If you're on the eastern states, in Australian Eastern Daylight Time, it may be breakfast time for you somewhere else, or maybe even dinner. Who knows? We have a short break, like 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and then I'll give a talk. And today's talk will be about death and destruction and trauma. So it'll be about impermanence. And I can't help but talk about the current disasters that are happening in my part of the land, in Winja Waibel country. And so I'll give a talk at 11. Probably, sometimes I go over, but I try to keep my talks under an hour. Hopefully it'll be about 50 minutes, maybe even less if you're lucky. So then we'll have a bit of quiet time, and then maybe some questions and discussion. But then we'll have another guided meditation. Then we'll have a break for lunch, 12:30 to 1:30. We can go offline if you want, and come back if you wish. Then at 1:30 to 2:30, we'll sit and walk. For those who haven't sat with me before, we usually divide our periods up into sitting and walking, usually half-hour periods. With the sitting, you do whatever meditation you want to do. You could follow the guidelines that I suggest in the morning, or you could just do what is appropriate for you. And when we do walking, we're moving our bodies. If you choose to sit through for the whole period, that hour period, that's fine. Or you could choose to change the order around. You could do your walking and then sitting. When we do the sitting, we usually have our cameras on, if we can. You don't have to put them on if you can't. And when we do the walking, we usually turn our cameras off, if that makes sense. So now coming back to the actual practice that I'll invite you to do. It's this practice of serenity and insight. And I just want to make one very important point, that serenity includes practicing the 4 divine abodes. Serenity practice, technically the 4 divine abodes being warm benevolence, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity, as places we abide in, as states of mind we abide in, and radiate boundlessly, so that they include other beings. These states are very protective. These states lead to, just to go into these states, one feels comfortable, one feels relaxed, even sublime, and one feels at peace, tranquil, and connected. It is, as I'll mention later, a supreme way of relating to oneself and others. So this, when you can go into these states, when you can abide in these states, even if it's just, a half of a breath, or even if it's just a flick of a finger, it's really powerful for you to provide a wonderful foundation to cultivate concentration and insight. So today I'll invite you to a compassion meditation at the outset. Sorry, I'll go back a bit. I'll go through some preliminaries with our meditation, setting up a sense of seclusion, both mentally and physically, setting your intentions. Then I'll invite you to a compassion meditation, which is one of these 4 divine abodes. Then I'll invite you to calm and still your mind. This is a tranquility component of the practice. There are 3 kind of general pathways or vehicles for meditation practice. One pathway is serenity, and serenity first, then insight. Another pathway is insight only. And another pathway is insight and serenity coordinated and integrated at the same time. So it's kind of going backwards and forwards. The path I prefer is serenity and insight integrated. And I've given talks about this at other times. But what we'll be doing today is an integration of serenity and insight. So I'll be inviting you to the preliminaries, setting up your meditation posture, both mentally and physically. Then I'll invite you to establish your, inviting you to cultivate some compassion and radiate that boundlessly. Then I'll invite you to still your mind, calm your mind. If mindfulness of breathing is useful for that, please use mindfulness of breathing. If mindfulness of breathing isn't your thing, if it kind of causes you some disturbance or something, I invite you to focus on something. Bring something as a focus. A feature of serenity or tranquility meditation is having one object to focus on. So I'll invite you to focus on one object. And I'll be inviting you primarily to focus on your breathing, but if that's not the case, if that's not good for you, choose whatever is useful for you. It could be the way your hands feel as they're seated in your lap, or it could be sounds that you hear in the environment. Whatever it is, just let that, and then relax your body. Relax. Then, if you can, calm your mind by not feeding into mental activity. Sometimes it's a bit hard because we're quite mentally active often, but if you don't feed into mental activity, if you can step back from it and just watch it come and go, like images on a screen, for example, or watching, an analogy I often used is watching things passing by on a river. I don't know if that's really appropriate right now, but anyway, that's sort of sitting back, watching things coming and going into your consciousness. When you can do that, the mental activity seems to calm down naturally by itself. It seems to get really quiet. So I'll be inviting you at this point in time to, with the relaxation and the calming of mental activity, to cultivate tranquility and stillness and quietude and settledness. And then we'll just stay with that for a while. Then I'll invite you to notice impermanence. Notice impermanence. It could be the impermanence of your breath as it moves past your nose tip, for example. Or it could be the impermanence of sounds you're hearing. It could be even a reflection, how you've aged over the years. Whatever it is, contemplate impermanence. And that will be the insight component of this particular practice. Okay, so I'll just turn off the recording now so that you can ask any questions if you want without feeling conscious that they may be recorded.